Hi everybody, welcome to lesson 2 of our drafting. So we started off with this in yesterday's lesson. We're going to follow exactly the same process as last time. So we're going to start off by just pausing the video and having a look over the skills that you need to try and work into your writing. So if you pause the video and have a quick look over those, that'd be fantastic. Okay, now we've done that, what I want us to do is I want us to start off by looking at our writing from yesterday. So we're going to focus on the writing that I did so I remember where I'm up to. So what I want you to do is listen to my version of the story from yesterday, then have a read of your own. So, Jane woke feeling dreadful. A splitting headache, a gurgling stomach, aching joints all over her body. She woke. She woke trembling. She woke retching. Only semi-conscious, Jane propped herself up in bed. Something doesn't feel right, she pondered. Something was bizarre. Something was obscure. Something was exceedingly bizarre and exceedingly obscure. 12:07. 7 minutes past midnight. For Jane, seconds seemed to be frozen in time as her head swam with confusion. Her mind whirred faster than the frozen clock. Making her way for her medicine cabinet, Jane noticed her comforting family photos, her sweet-smelling candles, and her velvety slippers. Jane, who already felt more like herself, gulped down the sticky brown medicine in one swig. The light of the moon sang across the garden and through the window. The mesmerizing moon hypnotized Jane closer. Twilight danced through the garden, calming, serene. Bang! The earth rumbled. Smash! The soil split. Pow! The terrain wrenched. "Is the medicine making me hallucinate?" said Jane worriedly. Glaring from the depths were eyes round as marbles. Okay, so you'll notice then that yesterday we wrote plot point 1, plot point 2 and plot point 3, which means today we've got 4 more plot points to write. Now, just like last time, I've put up the 4 plot points here. I've put them all into 3 paragraphs just for ease. So we're doing 3 paragraphs again. So I'm going to read you through these first. So in the original story, after the tree started to transform, this is what happened. It said, Connor watched as the tree emerged from the ground. Twigs tangled, roots wrenched, and leaves laced to form the monster of his nightmares. Connor stared out at the beast. The monster lowered its gnarled hand. "Come with me," it bellowed. Connor said, "If I were to put myself in your hands, if I were to go with you, then what would you offer me?" "I have come to get you, Connor O'Malley," thundered the monster. "I'll do what I want," said Connor casually. Stomping across the soil, the monster strangled clouds, tore at trees, and pummeled brickwork. The clouds hid behind the moon. The trees trembled, and the bricks shuddered in fear. A real monster. A huge real monster. A huge, angry real monster. Shrugging, yawning, and leaning on the windowsill, Connor watched the monster. Despite the monster's aggressive, threatening presence, Connor felt no fear. "Shout all you want," Connor shrugged, barely raising his voice. "I've seen worse." Okay, so what you need to do now is you're going to pause the video, and I would like you to go back and look at your planning. Okay, so you need to look at your planning so that you know what you're writing about today. So pause the video, look over your planning. You might also, again, want to just read the writing that you did yesterday so you know where you're carrying on from. Pause the video now. Okay, now, just like yesterday, we're going to do a chunk at a time. So, started off with this bit. It said, Connor watched as the twigs emerged from the ground, as the tree emerged from the ground, Twigs tangled, roots wrenched, and leaves laced to form the monster of his nightmares. So, what I've got here is alliteration. The parts of the tree and the verbs that they do linking with the same beginning sound. So I've put, Jane watched as the tree yanked itself from the ground instead of emerged from the ground. Then, instead of twigs tangled, I've put the crown cracked. The branches broke. So I've got k, I've got br, and here I've got, and the roots ripped. So to form the beast of her nightmares. So remember as well to be using the pronoun to match your character. So if it's mum or grandma, it'd be her instead of his. Okay, so pausing the video, do your first section, try and get that alliteration in there. Off you go. Okay, now we've done that, we're going to go on to the next bit. So, on this next sentence, it says in the original, Connor stared out at the beast. The monster lowered its gnarled hand. Come with me, it bellowed. So, I've changed this. I've changed a different verb for stare, and I've put ogle. Jane ogled, and instead of beast, I've put the brute. Jane ogled at the brute. So again, instead of monster or beast, I've used behemoth in the next one. The behemoth lowered its knotted hand. You must come with me now, it growled. Okay, so pay attention, there's dialogue in there, so you'll need your inverted commas. You're going to change that dialogue, you're going to change the verb for look, you're going to change words relating to monster, the nouns. So pause the video and write that section now. Okay, now let's have a look at the next sentence and finish off this plot point. So, then it says, Connor said, if I were to put myself in your hands, if I were to go with you, then what would you offer me? So, remember here we're using the subjunctive form that starts off with, if I were. So, Jane whispered, I've said. Jane whispered, if I were to follow your instructions, would you be able to save me from this illness? So I've almost got Jane trying to make a bargain, trying to plead with the monster, whereas Connor is quite aggressive and rude to the monster. Jane's almost begging it for help. Okay? So, pause the video now, change that subjunctive form. What is your character going to ask the monster? Now, next we're going to go on to the characters talking to one another. So you need to have a look at your plot graph. You need to think about how your character's feeling when they start speaking to the monster. So, instead of I have come to get you, Connor O'Malley, obviously you're going to have to change the name. You might want to change the first bit as well. I've put you belong to me, Jane O'Malley. You've given them the same surname because they're family. Instead of thundered the monster, I've said bellowed the monster. Now, bear in mind what I've done. You've got a new speaker, so you should start a new line. Now, there's a bit of a mistake in the first version because I haven't started a new line there, but I have in the second one. So I've started a new line, and in this, instead of being rude and saying, I'll do what I want, said Connor casually, I've said, please, spare me. I'll do anything, anything, pleaded Jane desperately. So what's your character going to say to the monster when they start speaking to one another? Pause the video and write down that conversation the two characters have. Okay, now we've got this, the monster starts to move down towards your character. They start coming together. So, in the original it says, stomping across the soil, the monster strangled clouds, tore at trees and pummeled brickwork. So he's leaving a path of destruction after him. So instead of stomping, I've chosen the verb decimating, which means destroying. Decimating everything in its path. The Leviathan. So again, a synonym for monster. The Leviathan crushed train tracks, shattered street lamps and shook buildings. So you're thinking about 3 different things that the monster's destroying or interacting with on its journey. Pause the video, write those sentences. Now, in the next bit, we're working on personification, where it makes something that's not alive sound alive. So, in the original, it said, the clouds hid behind the moon. The trees trembled and the brick shuddered in fear. So I've changed that. I've put instead, the earth shivered in fear. I've got an image of the earth quaking under the monster's heavy feet. Roof tiles dive to their demise. So for that, I'm really thinking about roof tiles falling off the roofs because they're being shaken. But I've made them sound alive by saying they're diving. And gates groaned in terror. I had that image, the sound of the gates creaking as the monster goes past. But I've said the groaning. Then the next bit said, a monster. A real monster. A huge real monster, a huge angry real monster. So we were looking at synonyms for real, huge, and angry. So I've got a monster, a legitimate monster, so that means a real monster, a gargantuan legitimate monster. So that's the same as saying a huge real monster. And then finally, instead of a huge angry real monster, I've got a gargantuan enraged legitimate monster. Okay, so pausing the video now, write those sentences for me, please. Off you go. Now, in this final one, you're going to have your character reacting to the monster meeting them. So in the original it says, shrugging, yawning, and leaning on the windowsill, Connor watched the monster. So Connor's being quite blasé and laid back about it all, but Mum's not going to be doing that in mine. In mine, I said she was a -10 at this point, so I've said she's ducking, hiding, and shivering below her bed cover. She's pulled the cover up over herself. Jane prayed for the monster to disappear to where it came from. So instead of watching the monster, she's hiding from it and praying for it to go away. So pause the video, change the actions that your character's doing, and change what they're doing when the monster's coming closer. Now, the next bit was using a subordinating opener. So in the original one it said, despite the monster's aggressive, threatening presence, Connor felt no fear. Despite the monster's aggressive, threatening presence, Connor felt no fear. Now, in mine, I've chosen a different subordinating conjunction. I've thought about my I saw a wabub words, and I've chosen because. So I've said, because of its sheer size, she felt numb to her pain. She isn't feeling her illness anymore because she's numb to it. She's too scared to feel her pain anymore. Because of its sheer size, she felt numb to her pain and alert only to her terror. That's the only thing she can focus on in my story. She's at a -10. How is your character feeling? Which I saw a wabub word are you going to use? You could use because if you want and tell me why they're feeling that way. Or you could choose another. So pausing the video now, write these sentences, and we're about to finish the story. Okay, final piece. This is when the character says something to the monster. Now, Connor is feeling quite calm. He's not scared by the monster. In the original it says, shout all you want. Connor shrugged, barely raising his voice. I've seen worse. But in mine, Mum isn't feeling calm. She's feeling a -10, so I've changed the words. She says, please, I beg of you, Jane begged, desperate for her chance. I need you to save me. Save me and my son. So she's given a clue there why she's feeling scared. She's also scared about leaving Connor. So what you need to do now is change the speech that she uses when speaking to the monster. Okay, so pausing the video, off you go. Okay, we've now finished all of our drafts. Tomorrow we're going to come back together and we're going to edit and prove this. So for tomorrow I would like you to find some coloured pens or pencils. If you can't, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. If you can, even better. So that's your task for tomorrow, to try and find some coloured pens or pencils. And I'll see you for tomorrow's lesson. Bye bye everybody.